Picture a dark, freezing tent on the icy banks of the Danube River in the dead of winter. Outside, an empire is crumbling. A devastating plague is sweeping through the legions. Barbarian tribes are battering down the northern gates, and trusted allies are committing treason in the shadows. Inside that tent sits the most powerful man on earth, illuminated only by the faint flicker of an oil lamp. He isn't pacing the room in a panic. He isn't barking furious orders, nor is he drowning his anxiety in wine. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, picks up his reed pen, dips it in ink, and enters a state of focus so quiet and absolute that the chaos of the world outside simply ceases to exist. Fast forward 2,000 years. You are sitting at your desk. The room is warm, the danger is non-existent, and you have every tool imaginable to build your life's work, master a skill, or create something extraordinary. Yet, within 4 minutes of starting, a tiny piece of glass and metal in your pocket vibrates. A faint ping echoes. Your heart jumps, your hand twitches. Before you even realize what you have done, your focus is gone. You are scrolling through endless feeds of people you don't know, reacting to outrage you don't care about, and absorbing information that will be forgotten by tomorrow morning. 2 hours vanish into thin air. You feel depleted, foggy, and strangely hollow, as if a phantom pulled a plug and drained your vital energy right out of your chest. We live in an age where our attention is no longer our own. It is harvested, packaged, and sold to the highest bidder by algorithms explicitly engineered by the brightest behavioral scientists on the planet. They have turned human focus into a commodity. What if the answer to escaping this invisible prison was never a new productivity app, a complex calendar system, or a dose of synthetic stimulants? What if the secret to doubling your focus was forged over 2 millennia ago by men and women who faced war, exile, execution, and economic ruin, yet maintained a mind as calm and clear as a mountain lake? To survive in a world designed to keep you distracted, you do not need more time. You need a shield for your mind. Imagine walking down the chaotic streets of ancient Rome. Smells of roasting meat, shouts of merchants selling silk, clatter of wooden cartwheels on cobblestones, and the aggressive chatter of thousands of citizens filling the air. Now imagine walking into a fortress built of solid stone, closing a massive iron door behind you, and hearing all that noise instant drop into total silence. This is the creation of what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel. Most people believe focus is something you generate through sheer willpower. They sit down, grit their teeth, and force themselves to stare at a screen, treating focus like an engine they can rev up at command. But willpower is a finite resource. It leaks away with every decision, every noise, and every temptation. True focus does not begin with forcing your mind to look at one thing. It begins with fiercely guarding what you allow to enter it in the first place. When Marcus was writing his private personal journals, what we now know as meditations, he wasn't writing for an audience or seeking fame. He was building an internal sanctuary. He recognized that the human mind is like a vessel of water. If you shake the table, the water ripples and reflects distorted images. If you keep the table perfectly still, the water clears, reflecting the world with absolute precision. Every time you answer a non-urgent notification, check an email the moment it arrives, or read a breaking news headline that stirs anger in your chest, you are violently kicking the table. You are voluntarily surrendering the steering wheel of your mind to a complete stranger. To reclaim your focus, you must become an unrelenting gatekeeper at the doors of your perception. You must adopt the mental posture of a fortress commander. Ask yourself throughout the day, is this piece of information necessary? Does it serve my purpose? Or is it merely noise masquerading as signal? If it does not build your character, sharpen your mind, or advance your true work, lock the gate and leave it standing outside in the cold. Consider the remarkable life of Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and advisors to the Roman court. At one point in his life, Seneca lived in an apartment directly above a public Roman bathhouse. Try to picture the scene. Downstairs, men were lifting heavy lead weights, groaning with every repetition. Swimmers were splashing loudly. Pickpockets were caught and screaming at the top of their lungs. Hair pluckers were shrieking to advertise their services, while vendors shouted out sales of sausages, cakes, and wine. It was an absolute symphony of human chaos, a place where modern productivity experts would throw their hands up in despair and claim it was impossible to think, let alone work. Yet Seneca sat upstairs in his room, picked up his pen, and composed some of the most profound, enduring philosophy in human history. How was this possible? Seneca realized a fundamental truth about human attention. External noise only becomes a distraction when your internal state surrenders to it. Distraction does not live in the loud room. Distraction lives in the resistance of your own mind. When we demand that our environment be completely quiet, completely comfortable, and completely free of interruption before we can focus, we make our minds fragile. We turn ourselves into hostages of our surroundings. If a dog barks, our focus breaks. If a construction crew works outside, our day is ruined. If a coworker speaks too loudly, our train of thought vanishes. The Stoic approach to focus is radically different. Do not wait for the world to become quiet. Build a quiet center within yourself. When a loud noise or an unexpected disruption occurs, instead of becoming irritated and wishing the world were different, treat it as a test. A musician does not complain that the violin strings are tight. The tension is precisely what allows the music to be played. The noise around you is simply the background texture of reality. Let it exist without granting it permission to enter your internal chamber. When you stop fighting the noise outside, the noise inside dies down on its own. Look at the story of Epictetus. Born a slave in the far reaches of the Roman Empire, Epictetus spent his youth under a cruel master who eventually crippled him, leaving him with a permanent limp for the rest of his life. He owned almost nothing. He had no status, no wealth, and no physical freedom for decades. Yet, when Epictetus finally gained his freedom and established a philosophy school, students traveled from all across the Mediterranean just to hear him speak. Kings and statesmen sought his advice. Why? Because Epictetus possessed a form of freedom so absolute, so untouchable, that even the emperor could not take it from him. Epictetus taught that the human mind suffers from a single catastrophic error. We spend 80% of our energy trying to control things that are entirely outside our control, while neglecting the one thing that is completely ours, our own choices, our own thoughts, and our own focus. Think about where your focus goes during a typical day. You worry about what people think of your work. You fret over algorithm updates, market crashes, economic forecasts, weather patterns, traffic jams, and the unpredictable moods of your boss or clients. Every single one of these things lies outside your direct control. When you anchor your attention to outcomes you cannot guarantee, your mind becomes scattered, anxious, and fragile. Focus cannot thrive in a soil fertilized by anxiety. To double your focus, you must draw a razor-sharp line right down the middle of your life. On one side are the things you can control: your effort, your intentions, your attitude, and your immediate actions right now. On the other side are the outcomes, the opinions of others, the past, and the future. The master of focus looks at the mountain of things outside their control and simply lets them fall away. They do not waste a single unit of mental energy arguing with reality. They bring their entire awareness down to a single point. What is the task directly in front of me, and how can I execute it with maximum care right now? Imagine walking through a bustling ancient market. Smells of fresh bread, Spiced wines, roasted nuts, and rare perfumes fill the air. Merchants push samples into your hands, offering short-term bursts of pleasure in exchange for your hard-earned coins. This is no different from the modern digital landscape, except today, the market travels inside your pocket, and the currency isn't gold, it is your human life force. Every time you check a notification, open a social app, or seek out a quick hit of novelty, your brain releases a surge of dopamine. Over time, your mind adapts to this constant stream of cheap stimulation. It lowers its baseline. Ordinary tasks, like reading a deep book, writing a complex strategy, or practicing an instrument, start to feel agonizingly slow, boring, and painful by comparison. Your brain begins to crave continuous, micro-bursts of novelty, making deep concentration virtually impossible. The Stoics understood the subtle trap of indulgence long before modern neuroscience understood neuroplasticity. Seneca routinely advised his friend Lucilius to spend several days every month living on the poorest fare, wearing rough clothes, and stripping away all luxuries. He wasn't doing this to suffer. He was doing it to prove to his mind that discomfort is not lethal, and that true freedom lies in needing very little. If you want to restore your capacity for razor-sharp focus, you must intentionally practice starving the dopamine dragon. You must cultivate a tolerance for boredom. When you stand in a line at the grocery store, resist the urge to pull out your device. When you sit in a waiting room or pause between tasks, sit with your thoughts. Allow your brain to experience silence without rushing to fill it with cheap digital noise. When you teach your mind that it does not need constant entertainment to survive, the mental fog lifts. Tasks that once felt grueling suddenly become deeply engaging, and your ability to sit with complex problems until they are solved increases tenfold. Think of time as an invisible bank account. Every morning you wake up, 86,400 seconds are deposited into your balance. By midnight, whatever you haven't used is deleted forever. You cannot save it, you cannot borrow against it, and you can never earn a single second back. Seneca once made a chilling observation. People are fiercely protective of their property, their money, and their land. If someone tries to steal a foot of their soil, they take up arms and go to war. Yet, when it comes to their time, the only thing in the universe they can never replace, they hand it out freely to anyone who asks. They allow gossip, trivial distractions, and meaningless obligations to steal days, months, and years of their existence without putting up the slightest fight. The practice of memento mori, remembering that your time here is finite, is not a somber or depressing thought. It is the ultimate tool for radical focus. When you fully grasp that your life is a temporary flame, the trivial noise of the world loses its power over you. You stop leaving your deep work for someday. You stop allowing cheap distractions to murder hours of your day. You realize that to waste your attention on things that do not matter is, in a very real sense, to throw away small pieces of your life. Every single act you perform can either be done casually, with a mind scattered across 1,000 irrelevant worries, or it can be performed with the absolute presence of a master craftsman. Are you ready to discover the remaining principles that will transform your attention from a scattered stream into a concentrated laser beam? Tell me to proceed with part 2, and we will unlock the rest of the Stoic blueprint to master your mind. When you sit down to work, how many tabs are open on your screen? How many projects are sitting half-finished on your desk? How many conversations are running silently in the back of your mind? We have been sold the dangerous lie of multitasking. We wear our ability to juggle 5 things at once as a badge of honor, completely unaware that we are simply performing 5 tasks poorly while exhausting our nervous system. Marcus Aurelius had a simple, uncompromising rule for this mental chaos. Concentrate every minute like a Roman, on doing what is in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. tender affection, freedom, and justice. Imagine a master surgeon in the middle of a delicate heart operation. He is not checking his phone. He is not thinking about what he will eat for dinner. He is not wondering what someone posted online. His entire universe has shrunk to the width of a scalpel blade. If his mind wanders for a fraction of a second, the consequences are catastrophic. While your daily work may not carry the same life or death weight, your attention deserves the same sacred respect. Treat the task in front of you as if it were the only thing in the universe that exists. When you write, only write. When you listen, only listen. When you build, only build. Give the present moment your undivided soul. When you pour your whole self into a single point, you don't just finish faster. You enter a state of effortless flow where deep satisfaction naturally lives. Around 300 years before the Common Era, a merchant named Zeno was sailing across the Mediterranean Sea with a cargo ship loaded with valuable Phoenician purple dye, the rarest and most expensive commodity of the ancient world. Without warning, a sudden storm tore through the sky. Massive waves smashed against the hull, dragging the vessel down into the dark depths of the ocean. In a matter of minutes, Zeno lost everything he owned. His wealth, his livelihood, and his entire life's work vanished beneath the waves. He washed ashore at the port of Athens, drenched, penniless, and utterly ruined. Most people in his position would have broken down in despair. They would have spent years lamenting their bad luck, drowning their sorrow in wine, and wondering why fate had betrayed them. But Zeno walked straight into a bookstore, sat down near a teacher, and began studying philosophy. Years later, looking back on the catastrophe that wiped out his fortune, Zeno remarkably stated, "My most profitable voyage was the one in which I was shipwrecked. That shipwreck gave birth to Stoicism." In your own life, friction is inevitable. Projects will fail, systems will crash, people will let you down. Unexpected emergencies will tear up your carefully planned schedule. When these moments strike, your default reaction might be anger or frustration, a surge of emotional resistance that completely destroys your focus for hours or even days. The Stoics practiced what would later be called amor fati, the active love of fate. Do not merely tolerate the obstacle, lean into it. View every disruption, every delay, and every setback not as an enemy, but as raw fuel for your focus. When a plan falls apart, do not ask why this is happening to you. Ask instead how you can use this exact difficulty to make your mind sharper. When you reframe friction as training, nothing in this world has the power to throw you off balance. Have you ever noticed how your energy shifts after spending an hour with a deeply negative person? You sit down feeling motivated, but as they complain, gossip, and dump their grievances onto you, a subtle poison seeps into your thoughts. By the time they leave, your focus is gone, replaced by a heavy, restless exhaustion. Epictetus gave a stern warning to his students that remains startlingly relevant today. Other people's views and troubles can be contagious. Don't infect yourself. We guard our money with security systems, safe deposit boxes, and passwords. Yet we leave the doors of our minds wide open to toxic influences, outrage-peddling news, and chaotic people. You cannot maintain a sharp, concentrated focus if you allow your mental space to be polluted by the drama of people who have zero discipline over their own lives. Look carefully at the inputs you allow into your awareness every single day. Be ruthlessly selective about the voices you listen to, the people you keep close, and the media you consume. If a person or a piece of content leaves you feeling bitter, anxious, or unfocused, cut the connection without hesitation. Surround yourself only with those who inspire you to elevate your mind or enjoy the powerful, creative clarity of your own solitude. As night fell over Rome, Seneca would wait for his house to grow quiet. When the oil lamps were extinguished and his wife had gone to sleep, he would sit alone in the darkness and conduct a trial, not of a criminal, but of himself. He would systematically replay the entire day in his mind, asking himself blunt, uncompromising questions. Where did my focus fail today? What distractions did I give into? How could I have reacted with more calm? What could I have done better? He didn't do this to punish himself or drown in guilt. He did it like a scientist reviewing laboratory data. If you want to double your focus, you must establish an honest feedback loop with yourself. At the end of every day, step away from your screens, sit in silence, and review your actions. Notice the exact moments where your attention wavered. Identify the subtle triggers that pulled you away from your deep work. Was it fatigue, fear of failure, boredom, a random chime from your pocket? When you shine the light of awareness onto your habits, their hidden power over you vanishes. You stop operating on autopilot. You begin tomorrow not as a victim of your impulses, but as a conscious architect of your attention. There comes a moment when all reading, listening, and studying must come to an end, and real life must begin. Epictetus once asked a group of eager young students a question that cut straight through centuries of excuses. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? You can study all the philosophy in the world. You can download every productivity tool, highlight every book, and memorize every quote. But if you do not step into the arena and apply these truths right now, in this very hour, it is all worthless chatter. Focus is not something you wish for. It is something you practice. It is built in the small, quiet choices you make when nobody is watching. It is choosing to stay with a hard problem for 5 more minutes when your brain wants to run away. It is closing the extra tab. It is putting the phone in another room. It is choosing the quiet victory of self-mastery over the loud, cheap noise of instant gratification. The world will continue to scream for your attention. The algorithms will become smarter. The distractions will become more seductive. But your mind belongs to you, and you alone. Build your inner citadel, guard your time like the precious resource it is, and approach every single task with the absolute presence of a master. If you are ready to stop drifting and take complete control of your mind and life, subscribe to the Stoic Path right now. In our next journey, titled True Happiness, we will strip away the illusions of the modern world and uncover the timeless blueprint to a deeply fulfilling, unshakable life. Step onto the path today. Your mind will thank you.